right, we are 1 minute late. So get going. I want to thank everybody for coming out to the 6th almost annual Denton Matters Candidate Forum. We skipped a year one time. It was a bad call. We'll never do it again. Basically, a little bit about us. We are a group of community, politically minded people who focus on local politics. We are not a PAC. We are not a nonprofit, anything like that. Everything that we do is based on the questions people have on local issues with council and things like that. So we put together this forum once a year to talk to candidates and give people basically the opportunity to make an informed decision. There will be no endorsements or anything after this. Hopefully this information goes out to everyone to pay attention and make an informed decision when it comes time to vote. We have only 2 races this year that are contested. That's D2 and D3. So this focuses on both of those. We've broken this forum up into two different sections. That way you can get a more direct comparison. We'll be going with D2 first. For those of you who don't know what district you're in, we'll include in the link, in the comments somewhere, a link to go ahead and check on that. Informally, for D2, if you're in the northwest quadrant, kind of sitting on top of University, most of it's there. There's a little finger that drops down, Carol, and everything for a few blocks, and then a little tip kind of curves in, a little tickler at the bottom that goes along Dallas Drive. That's D2, but anyway, sorry, that's a bad description of the district. We'll go ahead and get to the matter at hand. On the ballot, you have 2 people vying for this. The candidates are Brian Beck, who is the incumbent, and Nick Stevens, who is the challenger. The rules are pretty simple. We're going to have 2 minutes for opening and closing statements and 2 minutes for every answer. We kind of ask everyone who's participating today, you don't have to use all 2 minutes. If you save a little time, we get more questions in and get more information to people. So you will be graded subconsciously on how succinct you are. Anyway, to start off with that, in the opening statements, we have arbitrarily chosen alphabetical order for D2 on who goes first, which means that Brian Beck, who is B on first and last name, we'll start with the opening statement. So, Brian Beck, tell us a little bit something about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the organizers. And good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Beck. I'm the incumbent District 2 City Council person. So who am I? I'm a research scientist and educator with a 37-year career in computational biology. And I know that sounds like too many subject matters mixed together, but honestly just means that I've spent my career wrestling with complicated problems using data and analytics to find solutions, and I bring those same skills to City Council. I've been fortunate to be an educator at both Texas Women's and UT Austin, and throughout my career I focused on education and public service, building knowledge and making thoughtful decisions and helping others to succeed. I carried that from my time as a professor and educator. I've lived, worked, and served and raised my family in District 2, run my kids through Denton ISD. For the past 18 years, I'm running for re-election because Denton deserves experienced leadership that does its homework, that understands government and tackles challenges head-on. That means protecting our libraries, our public spaces, our green spaces, investing in sustainability and renewable energy, strengthening our utilities for long-term resilience, and managing growth in a smart and responsible way that preserves our community's character and quality of life. I'm proud of the progress we've made, securing protections for green spaces, wildlife corridors, expanding renewable energy and demand response programs, and making real investments in neighborhood infrastructure, flood control, defending our libraries from censorship, and helping Denton take real steps towards better landfill diversion and utility resilience. We've shown that when leadership is thoughtful, experienced, and focused, real results follow. I'm committed to using that experience, to continuing that work to build a Denton that lives up to its promise. I appreciate everyone having me out today, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you. I forgot to mention the most important thing, the timing. When you guys get within 15 seconds, our timekeeper, Dallas, is going to hold up that sign back there. It's the only thing we have, so the candidates will see something that says make Denton a bully-free zone. It's not a statement on anything else, but that's all we had to work with. So anyway, at 15 seconds, we'll hold that up. Going up next, candidate Nick Stevens.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's name's Nick Stevens. I'm running for Denton City Council, District 2. Thanks to the organizers for putting this on. Big shoes to fill, because the last forum I was at Dan Silverleaf, and I got to drink during that one. So I hope this one's just as good. And happy Passover to anyone celebrating. I know my 4-year-old niece will be watching this later when it's up. So happy Passover to my baby niece Ever. I've lived in Denton for 20 years. I was raised in the public school system here by a group of teachers that changed the course of my life forever. I went on to the University of North Texas. And during that time, I worked a bunch of hourly wage jobs. I was a bookseller, a barista, an overnight desk clerk at Clark Hall. And I did that until I had the opportunity to start my own small business here in the heart of Denton. I've stayed here for 20 years because I love this city. And I genuinely love what we're capable of when we work together. When I thought about running for city council, it's because I asked myself the question I hope most people ask before running for office, which is, under current leadership, is Denton, or District 2, better off now than it was 2 or 4 years ago? For me, that answer was no. 65% of our residents are living paycheck to paycheck. Homelessness has doubled in just the past few years. And in my opinion, council's response was inefficient and ineffective. It was to raise property taxes on everyone, which increased mortgages and increased rent. And then it was to increase your utility rates by 25%. Consistently, I've remained motivated to be a huge part of this community as a small business owner, as a community activist, as the chair of the Health and Building Standards Commission, where I fought for both homeowners and renters in this community. And I genuinely believe that when we work together and focus on the issues that are ahead of us, we can accomplish big things. And so I'm looking forward to that discussion today, where we can actually frame and share a better path forward for the city of Denton. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start with roads and sidewalks. When Denton streets are torn up for extended periods of time, these conditions cause wear and tear on vehicles, and they put pedestrians and cyclists in danger as well. What ideas will you bring to council to actually help us fix our infrastructure in a timely manner from start to finish? And we will start with Nick Stevens.
Yeah. So let me tell you what I do for a living. I run a surety bond agency, and so these are financial guarantees given to contractors. In other words, my job is to work with the municipalities, school districts, the federal government, to make sure that construction companies do their jobs correctly and on time, and if they don't, I pay out for it. Now, just to make the record straight, in all of my time in this business, I've never once done business in Denton. I will never do business in Denton with a contractor, because I think that's sketchy, quite frankly. And so, that being said, this is what I work on every single day. And I look at the contracts we have, and I see how they're broken and how we can do better. We need to increase liquidated damages in those contracts, which fines contractors when they aren't doing their jobs on time. That's the first thing we need to do. And we also have to implement it, right? It's on the books right now at a very low rate. We need to increase it and actually enforce it. We need to call people out on their payment and performance bonds when they're not doing their job. Look at Bonnie Bray, for example. This shouldn't be happening over and over and over again on the taxpayer's dime. Instead, it should be the contractor that's paying for these things. It's about having better engineers, or more engineers rather, look at these contracts to ask themselves, how much time, what's the time of completion for this contract? And making sure that we keep that as short as possible. It's also about being more creative with how we award these jobs. Not merely lowest bidder, right? But we want to make sure that it's a point-based system like other municipalities do. That's having a lower bid. It's about your experience. It's about the work you have on hand. It's about your commitment to how fast you can complete it. I want to be clear, these are very concrete things that we can actually do to improve this. And it's something I'm passionate about, because no matter how boring it is, this is what I do every single day, and I deeply love those details, and I think that we can make that work for Denton.
And Brian Beck.
Thank you for the question. One of the things that happened around the time that I came on council was we went to a complete streets approach, where, and this was in response to this constant tear out and rebuild and tear out and rebuild, and lack of coordination between different utilities. Now, I'm not going to take credit for that complete streets. That happened in prior councils, but that started the year in 2021 when I came on board, and I fully support that because it says that you're going to come in and do it systematically. You're going to, as best you're able to organize these various vendors, you're going to do it in a coordinated fashion as best, working in the Metroplex with the high demand for streets and utility work that there is can go on. And you're going to start with the lowest utilities and build your way up to higher utilities, and with in between putting in temporary patches so that people can utilize their driveways and other modes of getting around. And the advantage of that complete streets approach is that not only can you find and coordinate or find issues that are hidden that you didn't know and that one utility doesn't tell another, but that you can coordinate those efforts and ultimately reduce the costs. Even though it's more painful all at once, you ultimately will reduce the costs because you're not going to have to revisit those things unless there's a problem at the surface level. And speaking of that, the contractors are already on the hook for those problems. For the bond package, the 2019 bond package, Neighborhood 9 that just went through our neighborhood up in the north and did most of Idiot's Hill, those contractors, where they had messed up the streets, the city held their feet to the fire and they had to come back and fix and resurface all those roads at no cost to the city. And I think my time is just about up.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so on this next question, we'll start with Brian. But so the question 2 is, from Corbin Road to Dania to Audra Lane and all points in between and beyond, Denton is becoming the tree murder capital of Texas. We know old growth trees do more to protect the environment than a handful of saplings that really don't conform to code. How do we finally fix our tree ordinance so we don't lose all of our heritage canopy?
No, that is an absolutely fabulous question, and one I have been working on since the first day I hit office. I campaigned on it. My logo is a tree. I'm a biologist. It's absolutely my number one focus is the environment. And one of the things that we did when we came in, we just implemented the 2019 tree code. And when I came on board, that actually started in 2020, just a year before I got on council. And it clearly, while better than the 2002 tree code, was insufficient. And so I've been pushing this entire time. Normally you will revisit a tree code every 10 years or so. We got it back on the books through my efforts after a five-year review. That's being picked up this year it's supposed to be picked up in the summer of 2024, but there were supply chain and other coordinating issues. But we approved that as one of our primary focuses on City Council in our summer retreat, to put that back in the books, to revisit it, so that you can do things like evaluate whether you are properly looking at the actual ecosystems and terrains. You can't just have 6 inches at breast height be the category for trees. You actually need to say, is the tree on the top of a hill? Is it in a riparian area? Are you following, is it biologically functional? So I've gotten that kind of focus back on the Development Code Review Committee as its chair. I've gotten that, we're revisiting the tree code early to look at preservation and changes, and so that we can come up with smart, cogent ways of fighting off the buy right, the ability to just simply pay into the tree code. On top of that, I recently got through council green roofs, so that for all new city buildings, if you're going to have to put green roofs, at least in the planning stage, is not implemented.
Okay, thank you. And Nick, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, and I don't think I'll need 2 minutes for this. I'll just point out a few things. One thing is about the ordinance itself. I just had an in-home this week with individuals who had something they were building and the city was involved in it, and they were really bothered because of the red tape that was there for them that they didn't see was as present for big developers in the community wiping out hundreds of trees, right? And so I'll say this and then I'll pivot a little bit. I do kind of reject this notion that Well, a little bit down the road, we can revisit the tree code ordinance early, and it's going to be earlier than usual. Every single work session meeting, at any given time, any counselor can make a 2-minute pitch for a tree code ordinance. In fact, the occupant of the District 2 seat before us and before Connie Baker, Ms. Keely Briggs, I mean, she's been talking about this for the past few years as well, that the ordinance is broken. And we can all see that with, you know, our own observations every single week that it's going away. So we don't have to wait. We can just have someone on council right now make the pitch. And frankly and humbly, I'd ask my opponent at the next meeting to make a pitch so that we can actually revisit this now, not in a few years.
Thank you.
So every year when the temperatures drop below freezing or the summer heat gets deadly, there is much concern about how to get our homeless population to adequate shelter. The same concerns continually come up, but no movement has been made by council on a formalized resiliency plan. How do we get that very predictable human concern finally taken care of? And I will start with Nick on this one.
Let me start with this. You know, this is something that came before council just a few weeks ago, really a few months ago, and it wasn't because of council, it was because of the community. And the community came here and said the system was broken. I pointed that out as well, and here's what I found out. Our warming shelters are based off of the raw temperature outside. But what I found out when I was playing pickleball with a friend for the first time is that the regulations for pickleball are that the temperature in which this place is open or shut is based on the wind chill and the heat index outside. So we can tell people when they are or not on their own volition allowed to play pickleball based on the wind chill, but homeless people can't have adequate warmth based on the same thing. These are the kinds of things that we need to revisit, and I'm going to be the kind of representative that listens. This is something that really gets under my skin because I attend a lot of these meetings, is that you have people take time out of their day to come to a council meeting, and whether they have to find a babysitter or they just had a long day's worth of work, and people are pouring their hearts out, like Mama T, who's here, who did it that very week, and brought this issue forward to the council. No one responded publicly. No one said anything. I think that's wrong. I want to be the kind of council member that is going to be responsive to the needs and publicly say where I stand, and so that's just a policy that we can very easily fix.
Yeah, respectfully to my opponent, that's simply not true. I've been bringing up this issue for years, since 2021, 2022, the issues of proactive planning. I've had regular meetings with the city manager in which, and the community improvement services, in which I've advocated for wind chill, wet bulb temperatures, and heat index as the standard, in which I've said that we cannot go year after year after year after year of being reactive. We know that winters are cold and summers are hot. I have a history of, you know, and both of us have a history of social media posts. So do I. Go back and look at the record. So these are things that just came up a few weeks ago at the last crisis, at the last winter, but something that we've been talking about forever. And the needle has moved from having shelters at different locations with different response times to coordinating a focus on the current shelter. Now, I actually disagree with the city stance on this. I think you can do proactive shelters and have called for that in the public, warming and cooling stations. But the current stance from the majority of council, and one councilor does not invalidate an entire council, is to have those responses at the ODB shelter out on 288. And those have improved. The number of beds, the number of recliners, the number of mats has improved over the years. And in fact, the recent audit that just came out on the Friday staff report came about substantially because myself and other councilors were demanding an audit from the city management staff as to why we had these reactive and not proactive responses to community efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, question number 4, and we will start with Brian. For years, animal advocates and our own shelter committee have raised concerns about animal welfare at our city-run facilities. But prior to the public outcry after the death of Gunner, the dog, almost nothing was done or even pitched by counselors to help our furry friends. How do we finally get progress on animal and wildlife welfare in Denton?
No, it's a really good question. I'm going to push back on that one too. The initial audit that came about was because folks in the community that worked with me had made me aware, my nominee to the shelter committee, had made me aware of issues, and I brought that forward. It was me that called for the audit 2 years ago that the auditor did, and I was the one on council that called for that audit. I was the one on council that when the mayor tried to get the person who was on the shelter committee kicked off the shelter committee, I was the one that kept that person on and fought for that person. So I have been paying attention. I'm also one of only 3 counselors that were regularly engaged with the people that brought forward the Gunner concerns, and as well as being engaged with city staff, as well as publicly saying that the initial attempts to review the shelter were, on the surface of it, looking thin and insufficient, in which case we had additional studies done. So those are all things that I have been actively engaged on. I've been actively engaged on after I learned more from the Texas Humane Legislative Network about the efficacy of ethical pet sales and the precise language of that. I'm the one that went to Austin and Washington, D.C. and advocated with our delegation to push for that legislation as recently as just 2 weeks ago. So these are all things that I'm aware of. Steering the ship of government simply takes time and effort, and you have to stay at it over long periods of time.
Okay, thank you. And Nick?
Yeah, I'm proud to have Diana Leggett as my campaign manager. She is dedicated to this cause more than anyone I know. I don't pretend to know things that I don't know. I think that's my best quality. And that means listening to people who do know. And Diana is that person for me on this topic. I hear my opponent respectfully say that he's done X, Y, and Z, but where is it? What's changed? I mean, Diana has been asking for years for reform. What's happened? And again, I don't want this to be a tit for tat because Brian and I are friends, and I think we both say that. But again, records matter. When Gunner was killed, my opponent said, well, slow down, we don't know for sure. Let's get an audit done by a PR firm whose job is to protect the city in the middle of a crisis. So we all knew what was happening then. I mean, again, we have to revise this, and one of it just goes to the core of, I think, my leadership style, which is a bottom-up approach. I don't know everything. I know a lot about a few things, and I surround myself with very smart people, and I get to work on the issues. And so that's the kind of leader I am, and I'm committed to work in that way when I continue on and am elected in District 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to do something a little bit different right now, just to kind of add a little sorbet to this. It's going to be a real quick hit trivia session. You guys, please don't blurt out your answers. Raise a finger, raise your hand. Whoever gives me the finger first, I'll call on, and then we'll go from there. First question. This culinary delicacy has become an unofficial Denton mascot post-pandemic.
What mascot?
Brian Beck.
It's got to be one of 2 things. It's either glizzy or north of ordinary.
We would take glizzy, also hot dog, also baby hot dog. Next question. What beloved local treasure was replaced by a Chipotle on Hickory Street? Nick Stevens.
The tomato.
The tomato is correct.
We'll pull one out.
Denton is the cinematic home of happiness. Complete this famous musical line. Damn it. Brian Beck.
Janet, you're
We just accepted Janet.
I forbear.
Okay. Next question. Denton has how many vape shops? I think Brian had his hand up first.
I think we had a workstation on this. I think it's 58, but I could be wrong.
We stopped counting at 20. We would have taken any number greater than that. All right. The next question is a visual question. Which letter is silent in this word? Nick Stevens?
It's N and T. It's done.
We would have accepted T, but N and T, depending on how you say it. We do live in Denton. There you go. And final question. Who you got for mayor next year? You know what? We didn't actually expect to answer. Just wanted to get the reactions. Thank you.
Diana Leggett.
All right, moving back to more serious questions. In the prior forum, all of the candidates acknowledged that Denton is currently on pace to be overstocked on multifamily residences, but the town is lacking an inventory for owner-occupied homes. The average new home in Denton costs over $400,000, which is a lot for the average worker. What responsibility does council have to home buyers to protect their futures? And do you support upzoning to put high-density units inside neighborhoods that are currently zoned for single-family? And we'll start with Nick Stevens on that.
Sure. Let me use my neighborhood as an example, because that's the picture I like to draw for individuals on what we can do right. I live in historic Denton, downtown Denton, and that's right off of Oak Street. That neighborhood has been the way it is for well over 100 years. It's these craftsman homes that are beautiful, and there are duplexes and triplexes every which way as well. And on some of the streets, there's accessory dwelling units in the backyard, or those are guest houses in the backyard, and it's created such an eclectic community. I'll give an example of where zoning's gone wrong in our neighborhood. We had a neighbor that when the bike shop closed on Hickory Street wanted to have an 8-person wine bar there. They weren't allowed to. It would have cost thousands of dollars for an application. But instead, a cannabis shop was allowed to open up without any of those fees. I think everyone would recognize that's not fair and that we can do better. And I think it's about sharing that kind of vision with the community on what's going wrong. And just to answer the heart of your question, do I want to knock down a bunch of historic homes and build a, 10-story complex? No, and I don't think anyone does. But I want to paint a picture of why I bought my house. 102 years ago, Zulafay Wisdom built and bought my house. And she had it designed as a duplex so that she could afford it. It was probably 50 years later turned into a single-family home, and they built a garage that was turned into a guest house back there. And so it's kind of funny, right? Because 101 years ago, she built a duplex to make her mortgage more affordable, and 101 years later, I bought my home with a guest house in the back to rent out the back affordably to someone else so that I could afford my mortgage. It's kind of about sharing that vision of what the John B. Denton neighborhood looks like with the community, saying this helps everyone. It helps renters, it helps homeowners, it helps the community. I didn't see, I'm so sorry. And that's that.
And Brian Beck, please.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Nick that everybody up here is not for blanket upscaling. I think we both have a record of saying that all over the place. What you do want to avoid is large sprawl at the edge of town because of the infrastructure costs and the VMT costs to having sprawl. You want to have you want to avoid partly culturally and partly because it's not the right resources. These giant apartment complexes built ungainly into the corners of high traffic highway areas. That's not good quality of life or anything. Everybody's trying to avoid that. Where we need to get back to, and what I've been advocating for a long time, is sort of the missing middle, the townhomes, condos, duplexes that are compatible with neighborhoods, act transitionally with neighborhoods, that allow density to come in, and the citation that Nick just said in the John B. Denton area, this is what can happen if you're not proactive and integrate and understand that historical preservation, which is important, and I've actually been participant of and led some walking tours, not led, but led the development of some walking tours in various areas in Denton to try to have proactive historical planning so you know where you want to preserve and where it's appropriate for economic development. And during those tours, these issues of sort of the silliness of too much overprotection on one hand, coupled right across the street from underprotection. And that sort of lack of nuance, lack of sophistication is what we want to try to avoid in Denton. And I've got seconds left, so I'll just stop there.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we're going to start with Brian on this question. Over a 4-month period in 2024, utility rates were increased 25%. For a small home like mine, that's an increase of approximately $1,000 a year. In the last year, Dentonites saw their taxes increase too. That's kind of fantastic, actually.
It's green infrastructure.
It is. Great. Sorry about that. For a small home like mine, that's an increase of approximately $1,000 a year. In the last year, Dentonites saw their taxes increase too. What can council do to keep Denton residents from being priced out of living here? And what can be done to stop the continuing rise in electricity rates?
No, it's a very pertinent and excellent question. It's been one of my foci. I can't stop saying that word. That's the math term, sorry. One of my focuses for the last few years. First, let me give a little background. There was $40 million increase in electrical fees over the last year. About $10 million came from servicing debt on Winter Storm Uri from a few years ago. There was about $30 million that came from Austin, from the legislature, changing the way ERCOT and the PUCT do transmission cost of service, TCOS, and we went from earning money for the city of Denton to paying money for the city of Denton without any behavior change. We didn't do anything differently, and it went from a revenue to a cost. Then, one of the reasons I have sustainability and climate action plans and climate issues as one of my primary focuses, there I did it right that time, is not just because I'm a biology, but because the third point was it cost us $30 million additional dollars because when we did our forecast modeling on electrical needs, climate change had made our night times warmer than our predicted models to the tune of 30 million more. So that's 30 plus 30 plus 10, 40 million more dollars. We didn't do anything in that except have our existing predictive models not account for climate change. And we did actually do an increase. We just didn't increase it enough. We didn't realize it enough. So in the last 15 seconds, what are we going to do about this? One of the things, we only have about 3 rate tiers right now compared to water, which has many rate tiers. I would like to see this rate tiered by consumption. It's something I've been in active discussions with DME about, is tiering the rates so that low consumption is at a low rate, average consumption is high, and high consumption is at the highest rate.
And Nick Stevens.
Yeah, I mean, I am a little confused by that response because I don't understand how someone can say they fought for lower rates, but then they voted to increase everyone's rates by 25%. So I'm confused by that. I'm confused by this plan to have rates based on rate of consumption, because that sounds good on paper, but understand what that means. Solar users will pay less, and people who have access to a lot of money will pay less. But understand that the people who are struggling the most, they don't have insulation. They don't have good windows. They're moving through energy left and right at far higher paces. And so that hurts the people who need the most help. Now, outside of that, I would say we could just ask corporations in this community to pay their fair share instead of expecting it to go on the backs of residents. I think that's an option. I think we could have used excess sales tax revenue instead of for pet projects to in a creative way, help pay off debt. Outside of that, one of the core portions of your question, though, was how can we make Denton more livable? There is the affordable housing aspect, but there's also the economic development aspect, which is about upward mobility. It's about making more people make more money by bringing jobs into this community that help folks breathe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're running down on time, so if I could just get a minute from each of you on this one, and we'll start with Nick on this one. Just real quick, what does the phrase "keep Denton Denton" mean to you?
It means being able to be up here with a beard like his and mine that are beautiful. It means being able to go to music festivals that we don't have anymore and bringing those back, because that's our economic development. It's about supporting our arts and our culture. It's about convincing the Michelin group to come review our restaurants and celebrate people like the taco shops on McKinney Street. That's what it's about. It's about the community spirit that we have, where most of us agree on a lot of the same stuff. Remember this, it was council that said you can't have liquor stores here, and the community said, by golly, we can. We'll have a petition and we'll do it ourselves, right? It was the community that said, you're not going to frack here. It was the community that said, you're not going to arrest us for just having a tiny bit of pot. That's what the community, that's what Denton makes Denton Denton. We are the strangest, smartest, most amazing community. I love this city so much. If you want to have a fun time, you go to a council meeting, honestly, because that sounds stupid, but yeah.
Disagree.
Thank you. And in a minute, Brian Beck.
Yeah, I'm going to start off. Disagree. It's service rewarding. I'm not sure it's fun. So no, we're not going to disagree on arts and culture. This is a college town that attracts scientists, professionals, artists, a broad plethora of people. We've got 3 colleges in this town. We've got Denton ISD. All that feeds back in itself, and over again, you see that cross-fertilization of one area of sort of critical thinking, arts and culture come into another area. If anything, this town can stand to do a little bit more, college transfer and intellectual property transfer, things like Stoke and Discovery Park, to migrate some of the really great art and engineering and ideas back out into the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. And winding down for day 2, hopefully we provide some information for you guys to help you make your decisions. We're going to go into the closing statements now. So in the next 2 minutes, tell us why people should vote for you, and we'll start with Brian Beck.
All right. Thank you again, Denton Matters. I'm thankful for all the, I was going to say great questions in my notes. Interesting questions. Some of them were great. Some of them, the trivia, I don't know about. That was fun, though, I guess. And I hopefully, through a lot of those, I showed you that I have principled and experienced leadership in District 2. Over the past few years, I've helped protect our libraries, protect our green spaces, invest in renewable energy, improve neighborhood advocacy, teach neighborhoods how to advocate for themselves and how to develop their own infrastructure and defend the rights of all residents in Denton. I fought for transparency and smart growth and real data-driven solutions. I focused on building knowledge both in myself and in the residents so that everyone has those tools to advocate for themselves. I know that there is frustration with the pace of development in government, and it's real, and it can't be discounted. But experience in times like those are when it matters. It's easy to say you want to be an agent for change. We see that all over the government, especially right now. But real progress comes from deliberate, fact-based, pragmatic choices, not from burning it all down. I'm running for re-election because Denton deserves proven leadership that does its homework, listens, adapts, and gets things done. And together we can keep building a better Denton, and I thank you for your time, and I'd be honored to earn your vote and ask you to go to beckfordenton.com and check out who I am.
I think it's interesting to suggest that one of the people up here wants to burn the city down. I'm a community activist. I bring people together. I don't divide people. I don't talk down to people. I don't disrespect people. I lift people up. That's the kind of leader I'm going to be. So I don't know. You can fact check the rest of that stuff that he says he did but didn't do. But outside of that, look, I've been consistent in this campaign. 65% of the residents are living paycheck to paycheck. Under his watch, homelessness has doubled.
It's not true.
It is true. Read the audit.
It's not
And
true.
so, read the audit, everyone. It'll tell you. And so, look, we need help. We need to start moving forward together to actually come up with real solutions. I was raised in affordable housing. I was on food stamps. I had free lunches as a kid. What my mom wanted for me was a better life than she had, and she lived that dream because she was able to see me start a business and get ahead. I want that same opportunity for other people in this community, and that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for affordability. I'm fighting for the community. That's why I'm running. Go to nickfordenton.com for more information. I got some beautiful yard signs out there, and I'm asking for you to vote for me starting April 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, D2.
And this concludes the D2 section of our forum. If we can get the D3 candidates up, we'll get going in a few minutes on that.